It's been nearly 2 years since I have done an update on the English fan translations we have been so lucky to be a part of for the Sega Saturn. In the previous episodes, we went over the likes of the Fire Pro Wrestling games, a slew of computer-based ports, and 2 above and beyond projects in Stellar Assault SS and Bulk Slash. There's a lot more than that in those episodes, so I'll put a link down in the description for you to take a look. Since it's been so long since we talked about these types of games in any meaningful way, I've decided to put together a part 3 here to bring you up to speed on what's going on in the Saturn translation community. We have a lot of games to talk about, so let's get started. If there's been one game on the Saturn that has been begging for an English translation, it's been Princess Crown. This one got a lot of hype even way back then. It was released in Japan at the end of 1997, right as the bottom dropped out of the Saturn's Western markets. People were looking for stuff to play, and this one got a lot of press and water cooler talk as a unique action RPG with a great art style. The game was playable in its original Japanese form, but for most of us unfamiliar with the language, we were missing the story and the finer details of the experience. Thanks to the translation team, we have graduated to version 1.0, and the game is now fully playable in English with extras. That means you can now traverse the Kingdom of Valendia and get to know all its wonderful characters as it was meant to be. There are knights, dragons, witches, and of course an evil demon trying to mess it all up. If you've never played it, there's never been a better time to give it a go. It was developed by Atlus, who finished the game after the original developer went under, but Vanillaware would eventually be born from that experience. Arcana Strikes was originally a late 1997 release. It was a card battle game released by Takara and Red Company that I never had really given much time to. Aside from being in Japanese, I am also not a card game guy, so this never held much interest. The gameplay centers around battles where you collect and level up different types of cards. This is centered to the story because the world of Arcana is fading, and only you can collect the cards that will make it whole again. From what I can tell, there isn't any real Twitch gameplay here. It's all card battles, story sequences, and an overworld to govern it all. The art style is nice, the music is decent, and if you like this kind of thing, I can see a fair bit of appeal here. I can't say I've played it or seen much like it on the Saturn, at least not in English. In fact, to my knowledge, it's still a true Saturn exclusive and has never been released anywhere else. At the end of 1995, CRI bestowed Mobile Suit Gundam on the Saturn, a side-scrolling action game that would go on to sell quite well. As you'd expect of the Saturn, it never left Japan, so it didn't initially have an English localization of any kind. Fortunately, some big hitters in the Saturn community joined up to get the job done, and we now have a fully playable English translation version 1.0. As you can see from the footage here, it's basically a run-and-gun shooter hybrid, where you must deal with enemies all around you, including the fore and backgrounds. Lots of scaling effects, background layers, and large sprites make up a very decent visual presentation. The gameplay itself isn't overly exciting or deep, but it's fun enough that fans of the IP should enjoy a few play sessions. Saturn Bomberman was an extremely popular game on the Saturn, but unfortunately the other games in the series never left Japan. I always considered Saturn Bomberman Fight to be something of a hidden gem, and we now have an English translation thanks to Malenko. It was originally released in 1997 and developed by Eleven, the same company that did the Time Bokum series on the Saturn. Saturn Bomberman Fight takes the typical 2D series and brings it into the 3D era, with a new polygonal isometric viewpoint. The gameplay is a bit more robust here thanks to a jump and throw that each character has by default, making the action more aggressive right from the start. The learning curve here is much larger, but overall, I think I'm starting to prefer this over the first one. And those are some pretty big words. One of the joys of owning a Sega CD back in the mid-1990s were the Lunar titles. Both of Game Art's masterpieces also made their way to the Saturn with updated content and presentations. Unfortunately, like many Saturn versions, they were left in Japan and weren't released elsewhere in the world. And it remained so for years until Mr. Conan took it under his wing and is now working hard to give us a Saturn edition we always deserved. It's still being worked on and still needs things like the full motion video translated, but the entire game is playable now start to finish in English. Since Silver Star's story also has a translation for the Saturn, that means we have access to both these 32-bit classics, something that used to be only available on the PlayStation in North America. It takes place 1,000 years after Part 1 and follows the adventurer Hero as he seeks help from the goddess Althena. There is a terrible force at work against Lunar, and only you can stop it. I'm not gonna blow smoke up your skirts here. I don't know a lot about Logic Puzzle Rainbow Town. It was released in 1996 by Human Entertainment and appears to be inspired heavily by the Picross series of titles. It's not the kind of thing I play, but I wanted to get it on here just in case fans would have any interest. Malenko handled the translation, which is now finished at version 1.2. The once Japanese exclusive Blast Wind now has an English translation. Originally released in 1997 and developed by Technosoft, this vertically scrolling shoot 'em up has a really interesting history. It was originally developed as a 1993 arcade release, but was never released commercially. Technosoft revamped it heavily with a new story and changed its name a year later, but that version was also never officially released. Technosoft wouldn't try again until this Saturn version, which was originally planned to be brought west by Working Designs until they abandoned Saturn development and canceled their remaining games. This English translation adds a new narration for the opening sequence, a new English dub for the enemy leader, and it fixes mistakes with the original English text. It also rebalances the sound effects and music for a more pleasant experience.
Global nuclear war has ravaged the Earth. Only a pocket of humanity survived after escaping into the prophet Noah's spaceship. However, hundreds of years passed and life support systems became exhausted. With no other choice, the humans returned to Earth's surface. Unbeknownst to them, a new civilization had taken over the surface. The invaders from Earth's crust, Gorn.
As with puzzle games, I am also not a fan of music or rhythm games. I still wanted you to know about Jung Rhythm, however, a 1998 release by Altron. I've read some good things from people who love the genre, so it's definitely worth trying out. It's been compared to Parappa the Rapper, by numerous individuals and outlets, and I'll need to take their word for it because I wouldn't know a good rhythm game if it smacked me in the face. The entire thing is in English now, right down to the text, songs, and cinematics. Rabbit was one heck of a strange release on the Saturn. It was developed by Aorn and published by EA Victor in 1997, a port of a very obscure 2D arcade fighting game. It puts you in mind of Capcom's JoJo titles, where you have an animal spirit you can unleash during combat for additional moves and damage potential. This new patch translates all the dialogue and cutscene interactions, plus the in-game command list. The hidden options menu is now open by default. The gameplay is a bit choppy and it's well below that of Capcom's best, but it's quite unique among Saturn fighting games. If you want something outside the typical Capcom fare, it should fit the bill nicely. It was a real shame that 1997's Silhouette Mirage never made its way west for the Saturn. It was one of the few treasure games that they developed for the Saturn, but it was locked to Japan for years on Sega's platform. This translation initially used the PlayStation Working Design script, but that has since been updated to a new translation project that closely approximates the Japanese original. If you ever wanted to play this game the way Treasure meant you to play it, you finally have everything you need to make that happen. It was a decent game on the PlayStation, but the Saturn is how it should be played. Wind Magic Great Operation Kingdom Grandprix was a 1996 vertically scrolling shoot-'em-up from Rising, a port of the 1994 arcade game of the same name. To this day, I'm not sure exactly if I'm playing it properly because it relies on a speed mechanic where you must outpace your opponents with proper button presses and your position on the screen. It's a strange mix of racing game and shoot-'em-up. Fortunately, the Saturn also has a shooting-only mode that bypasses that and makes it a lot more accessible as a traditional shooter. It has its fans, and you now have access to an English translation that was hidden away on the retail disc, now improved and includes the hidden cheat menu turned on by default. It has branching paths, decent graphics, and a crazy amount of variety in its soundtrack. It's not bad at all. Do you enjoy exploring dungeons, facing enemies, and scoring loot? Well, Dungeon Master Nexus should be right up your alley. This once Japanese-only exclusive was released in 1998 and done by Victor Interactive Software. You move around and explore in a 3D environment, solving puzzles and dealing with enemies who never stop stalking you. It's a creepy feeling game with RPG elements, so it has a lot to offer those looking for something outside the typical fare on the Saturn. It even looks and runs fairly well. If a full motion video murder mystery sounds fun, then you should check out JB Herald Blue Chicago Blues. This was first released on the Saturn in 1995 and developed by River Hill Soft. It's based on an original Mega LD creation that saw a very limited release. The Saturn game here features improved visuals but was left in Japan. Fortunately, this English translation takes the PC edition and finally gives us a playable Saturn adventure. I've messed around only a little so far, but it genuinely seems like an interesting concept. Fans of the series should be right at home. 1998's Baroque by developer Sting is one heck of a strange game. So strange, I don't know what's going on half the time. The world as we knew it has ended, and you have to explore a nerve tower to find the being that can fix it all. Each floor is randomly generated and each death progresses the narrative, though you do have to restart at the beginning. There is nothing remotely like it on the Saturn, and though it's been brought west for a few other consoles, this version stayed exclusively in Japan. This English translation allows the entire game to be played in all its crazy-ass glory. When a Japanese game decided to drop all pretenses of sanity, this is the kind of product you got. It's original, unabashedly forward in its themes, and if I do say so myself, a bit creepy. Embrace it, and it can be something special. "1995's Dark Seed by Cyberdreams isn't a bad game in and of itself. It's a point-and-click adventure where you must find a way to destroy an alien embryo that's been implanted in your skull and stop an otherworldly invasion. With just 3 in-game days to do it, there's not much time to fool around. Sadly, the Saturn port here is truly bare bones and doesn't take any advantage of the hardware whatsoever. The graphics are terrible and the audio stinks. It was rumored to be done for the Sega CD, and I have a feeling that code was moved over to the Saturn with no real improvements. On the plus side, the story is interesting and it uses the Saturn mouse. The English translation here makes things a bit more accessible by getting the text in English, which makes figuring out your next move a whole lot easier. It should have looked and sounded better than it does, but the core experience is definitely worth looking into. I've never played Waku Waku Puyo Puyo Dungeon before, and I can't say it's something I was ever interested in, but it now has an English translation for those of you that love that universe. It was done by Compile in 1998 as an action RPG entry to the venerable puzzle series, and after spending some time with it, it really is a cool little game. It puts me in mind of games like Sega's Fatal Labyrinth. It's extremely story heavy, so this is really the first time it's been accessible to English-speaking Saturn fans. Sakura Wars 2 Thou Shalt Not Die is a big one to show up with an English translation. It's the 1998 sequel by Sega CS2 and Red Company, a tactical dating sim and visual novel rolled into one package. I don't typically play this kind of stuff, but I know it has its fans, and you can finally play it on the Saturn start to finish in English. It's 3 CDs worth of mech battles, conversations, and relationship building that grew into a major series spanning some 30 years. The last game on our list is a huge win for arcade fans. It's a full English translation for Tower of Doom, the first in the Saturn's Dungeons & Dragons collection. This was originally released in 1999 and was among the final few releases by Capcom for the Saturn. It came in a package that also included Shadow over Mystara, which required the 4MB RAM cartridge. Tower of Doom may have been an arcade beat-em-up, but it had a story, branching choices to be made, and other RPG elements. This translation was necessary if you wanted to get the most out of that experience. Couple it with an ODE that can speed up the load times and you have an awesome version of the arcade original. There's also news that the person that did the work here plans to do the second game as well. We can only hope it happens to complete the collection. There we go, my big update on all the happenings in the Saturn's English translation community. The people involved here are doing an invaluable service to retro gaming fans. They are making games many of us wanted to play way back when a reality, expanding our Saturn libraries with new possibilities. It's almost as if the Saturn is still around officially, and Japanese games are being brought west at a steady pace. It gives me great hope that the games I would love to see translations for still have a chance, and hopefully, someday yours will as well. It's an incredible console being improved regularly by passionate fans, fighting the good fight and righting the wrongs that deprived us of so many classics. Should you be interested in any of the games I showed you in this video, be sure to check the description for more information. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.